Please, Anthony, just do the review. Hi everyone, Tithany Time Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Alt-J album, The Dream. This is a brand new LP from the UK's Alt-J, which, believe it or not, it's been about 10 years since I originally covered the band on their breakout debut, An Awesome Wave, in 2012. Time does fly, and it's a bit weird thinking about the band's output over the years, as it's a little difficult to define, much like Alt-J's sound in general. For some reason, the more records Alt-J comes out with, I feel less familiar with them, which I attribute mostly to the unique way they've avoided being pigeonholed stylistically over the years. Sure, on any given record from them, you'll catch notes of art pop and folk and singer-songwriter music, some electronics as well here and there, and rock. But none of their records head so boldly in any one of these directions they could be categorized definitively. So while I haven't loved all of Alt-J's output thus far, they keep me guessing, and there's something to be said for that. Like the way they pulled back on the incredibly subtle and cerebral This Is All Yours in 2014. Then there was the wild and messy Relaxer in 2017, which, is my least favorite record from them so far. A lot of little obnoxious pockets on this one. But listening back to it, this record definitely was a risk. The band putting out something this grating certainly lives up to the lyrical motto on my least favorite track from this LP, Hit Me Like That Snare. Fuck you, I'll do what I want to do. Shout out to Rage Against the Machine. Now, creatively, I think the madness continues in many respects onto The Dream, but the band somehow makes a smoother ride of it this time around and dishes out more memorable moments in the process too. BANE, for example, is one of the most dramatic openers I've heard this year, with its spacious, folky, and kind of progressive layers of guitar and vocals in the first leg, eventually breaking into these showy and theatrical choral sections that transition us into these drony and enchanting sections of keys and fat drum beats. It's a pleasant sound, I'll say that. But then on the lyrical side, Joe Newman seems to tell a story, metaphorically or literally, about a young kid who is having a bit of a fixation on or an addiction to cola, soda, sugary drinks. Newman describing the cravings and the sizzle of the bubbles on his tongue as if it's a fix that haunts him to this day. Sure, the track is pretty subtle, but I think it's a strong opener for the LP overall. From here, we get two of the teasers from the album that I wasn't crazy about at first, but they have grown on me. There's U&Me, whose verse melodies I still find to be pretty tedious, but then there's the chilly atmosphere and the haunting group refrains on the chorus. It's just you and me now, which have really dug themselves into my brain. Plus, the rush of strings and building grooves in the second half is legitimately stunning too. Though I will say the moody and groovy soundtrack happening here does seem to be a bit of a disconnect from the story being told in the lyrics of a very lavish summer holiday. But simultaneously, I guess the track does reinforce some of the record's larger themes of vice and indulgence. Meanwhile, the song Hard Drive Gold addresses a totally different deadly sin, greed. This track is literally about making fast money in the age of crypto. The thumping bass and drum grooves and silly little verse lyrics are, yes, preposterous, but the band's truly tongue-in-cheek attitude is revealed by the time Joe Newman sings, "My teacher took me to one side and told me I was scum. I left and then Googled neoliberal. Don't be afraid to make money, boy. Don't be afraid to make money, boy." Honestly, I love it. It may be the funniest song Alt-J has ever written. If you look at it simply as a portrayal of this current, new, absurd economic reality that we're facing. Then Happier When You're Gone is a deep cut that might just be one of my favorite Alt-J songs so far. It's a relaxed, string-laced, multi-phased ballad that has more haunting group choruses, kind of catching notes of M. Ward on the guitars and the mix and the lead vocals too. I don't know why it's taken this long for the similarities between Ward's and Joe Newman's voice to hit me, but yeah, they're right here. Lyrically on this cut, we get more images of drugs and negative influences. Benzo Timeline cuts smiles into straight lines. Instrumentally, there's a pretty powerful finish on this track too. The Actor, by contrast, I thought was a pretty bland and slowly paced piece of synth pop, but there is a grandiosity to its layering that I like. Plus, I think lyrically, the band is really locked into a lot of these themes of addiction and falling apart. This track being about an actor who has a bit of a coke habit and is trying to grow their career while keeping it together. Get Better's a cerebral and intimate acoustic ballad that reflects on sickness during our pandemic times, with nods to sending cards and frontline workers, and finding ways to process and deal with this hopefully temporary distance. I still pretend you're only out of sight in another room, a younger me, a younger you, meeting at the Serpentine, with also reference to this person's yellow jeans and how their look defined his 2009, which I think is a bit of a weird thing to say, honestly. I mean, I know I'm having a bit of a giggle at a very serious track here, but when a song is being written for somebody or about somebody, I tend to think of like how that person might take some of the direct lines being said in the song if they were uttered, you know, right to their face.
This look defined my 2009.
Thanks. But still, the sentimental vibes on this track come through, and the song generally feels very heartfelt. The appeal of the song Chicago, though, very much escapes me. The washed-out folk intro doesn't leave a strong impression, fails to draw me in, and whatever tune or song is unfolding past this doesn't really stand a chance against the thumping tech house beats that build past this point. Newman's vocals and anything else that he's trying to get across is just really covered. I thought the unlikely and subtle fusions of art pop and opera and head-nodding beat loops on the following Philadelphia were a lot better. But once again, Newman's vocals, the narrative, and the song in general feel a little drowned out by the pomp of the rhythm section and the strings here. The final leg of the LP offers up a few more surprising moments. There's the barbershop quartet intro on Walk a Mile, which eventually just moves into this very slow, spacious, and patient blues rock cut. This is the longest song on the record by a mile, but it just doesn't offer up enough progression across its length and gets stale before it's even close to over. Losing My Mind, unfortunately, doesn't leave that much stronger of an impression. I wish the roaring guitar drones that color the atmosphere in the second half weren't so gray and dull. But the idea of losing your mind at this point on the record, given all the narratives so far, is an interesting narrative shift. And I love the way Newman is able to tie this feeling to things like memory, a bygone past, and the people who have left with it. The instrumental aesthetics on this LP are just so dreamy and blissful, but as I find again and again on each of these tracks, there's always a dark undertone lurking in Newman's words. But the song Powders kind of ends things on a positive note with a short snapshot of what looks like a young love. It's pleasant to the ear, but eventually moves into a skit that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a bad perfume commercial in terms of like the dialogue and the voice acting. Yeah, it's not very good, and I think it ruins the final moments of the LP, honestly. Like, it hits in this very sour and unexpected way, as if I'm being maced with some fragrance from Calvin Klein that I don't want to smell as I am running my way through a department store just so I can get to like the main corridor in the fucking mall. I don't want this. Leave me alone. So yeah, I think this record starts with a bit of a bang and then ends in a whisper. Certainly some of Alt-J's most interesting and bold and out there ideas and experiments and song concepts so far. I love the way a lot of the themes lyrically across this LP tie together. There are some very pretty and creative notes of instrumentation and production across this thing too. But with that being said, for every bop there is on this project, I think there's an equal amount of flops, and I'm not really enjoying this one too much more than I did Relaxer. Feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 here. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Alt-J, forever.